I did know that this is the lady that I need to get close to and really learn from. And I suppose it's that, you know, a good thing when you see it, and just the mahi that you're doing within your community, Jude, is outstanding. You know, similar in terms of Te Pita, and that real yeah, trusting that community voice and bringing it forward on their behalf is just, yeah, yeah, liberating, really, to see it in action. And it happens in many other pockets, but I think the more sharing we do around it. So this is your moment to share. I'll let you introduce yourself further, but really appreciate you being part of this.
Kia ora, and thank you, Amajit, for that lovely welcome. Ko arangi te monga, ko rangatike te awa no mōkai pā te o. Ko Jude McDonald, taka whenua. So I'm the CEO of the Whanganui Regional Health Network, but I guess my presentation today is more about the learning that I've experienced as a Pākehā leader, both strategically and operationally in our rohi. I guess my presentation is completely inadequate compared to all the others, but it's more my notes, I think, rather than leaving you with anything. I think it's about how I make you feel as opposed to what words you read. But thank you for inviting me. So I have been in a very privileged position to be invited by our iwi to be part of what our new locality and our future might look like. I've lived here all my life. I have been very active in our rural localities in both here and the city, and I have been really keen to understand what it is that's going to be different. So Māori Health Authority and Health New Zealand, one thing that I've picked up, we're building for the next generation, not tomorrow. And so I found that quite liberating, because this isn't about me or my career. This is about how I leave our place in a better place. The world of our Mokopuna will have, is not our world. Their expectations are much greater. And I don't know if for those of you that have had conversation with rangatahi, but it is really clear they have articulated world vision view that is much different to how I was raised. However, you know, we have so much to learn from them. And for Māori, they do have a clear and unapologetic plan. And it isn't about someone else's plan, it is their plan. And so my role is to lean in and listen and try and make sense in the world that I am able to lead, how we may respond differently. So in our arohi, it's iwi-led, community-driven, and obviously our mana whenua are the vehicle for bringing about this change in structure. So we have put our locality together as a PHO or as a health network. We are an owner of 5 clinical services, which are very important to our communities. And so for that virtual load, they want us to be part of it, and certainly some of the other work that we are doing is magnifying that. The system has to work equitably no matter what part you play in it. So you need to examine as an individual and as a provider and as a system, what is the part that you're going to play in that equitable world, and actually be part of feeling able to dissect how we operate now so that we can take that learning into the future. Whānau voice has to be articulated in every aspect of the design, and we heard about that this morning. And one of the things that I'm heading up to do tomorrow, and one of the developments that I'm working in Taihape in our rural area, is moving our primary care services and wrapping Wana Ora around it. So our Mōkai Pātea, our iwi provider, and us are working to move our services into a facility and how that might look. So we're meeting with Kaumātua and Rangatahi tomorrow, and the question that we will be asking is, what do you want to see that's different? How do you want it to, this service and this facility, how do you want it to make you feel? What is it that we should be looking at doing differently? So it's very liberating and a wonderful opportunity to be part of it. So the locality concept, I think you've probably all had some sense of what that means for your locality. But I think the important point is that whānau must feel safe in their non-Māori health models, and that is strongly relationship based. So, you know, I heard this morning from Kororia in particular, where there's whānau that are not connected, but they turn up at pharmacy. You know, like, we should not be describing where people need to turn up. We should be creating a system where any door is the right door, and we talk about the stuff, but we don't do it. One of the things when I, post-COVID, I went around and had the privilege of listening to many stories, and there was a rangatahi group that really influenced my thinking, and they talked about how does the environment make me feel, and how is my culture considered and reflected in people's behaviour and their attitudes. So it's not actually about what professional standing or flash title we have as leaders or as health clinicians. It's about how do you make me feel, and I think we heard a little bit about that this morning. Our job for all of us is to lean in and to listen. We don't need to know the answers necessarily. We don't need to have an opinion. We just need to listen, and we need to be really clear about what those points are that they're making, and then go back and reflect about, in our world, what am I going to do about that? And I think that as leaders in the health system, we are always very confident to have an opinion. And I think there was someone that said this morning about consultation, not conversation. And I think we're all guilty of doing a bit of that. So, so I encourage that as a different approach. Managing well-being rather than illness through early intervention, wānawara wraparound. But I really liked the wheel this morning, Andrew. I really felt that that would give whānau a feeling of, actually, I'm going to have you shape this consultation about what's important to me and what matters to me. And you know, so much of what I've heard, and I had the opportunity to attend the Hui Wakaronga in Wellington in May, and heard Tā Mason Jury say, together we will go far, but as individuals, we will not be able to undertake the aspirations that iwi and Māori have. And he talked a little bit about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and he said that the worst that can happen is that iwi feel the need to do and behave like the Crown have done to them, and in that sense we won't get anywhere. And at the same time, we have to correct these inequalities that are so obvious and so apparent in all of our services, and be courageous enough to stand up and alongside of them to say, no, we're going to put a line in the sand here, and we're going to make this a changed outcome. Te whare tapawhā, obviously everyone's talked about that, and I guess that's the essence of our future, and examining those aspects. And I think COVID, to be honest, is giving us some good opportunity to really look at that, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Creating momentum with local relationships and build trust. So I've been involved for the last 30 years in my region, and I have the privilege of actually going back to a rural community where I was raised to put right some very incredible wrongs. And so the wrongs resulted in a community trust that was managing health services for that community going into liquidation. And as a PHO or a health network, we were asked to pick up all of the services, and we have done that for over 10 years. And now we have an opportunity with our iwi partners to bring our services and the Wānawara workforce and team together. And I guess there was a statement that was made at the Hui Wakaronga, is that if our people have to struggle, they will not flourish. And how many times do we see our people struggling? And actually, is it them, or is it their issue, or is it us as a system? And I have to lean in there and say it's us as a system. And what are we going to do about that? The system isn't set up for the way we want to live, and we hear that on a frequent basis. I still get incredibly frustrated that we have a transition unit leading out this phenomenal change, and we have a ministry that is doing top down to DHB, this is how it's going to be, people. And then they hit us at the community saying, no, that's not how it's going to be, and we don't want to operate in this way. And we really are going to have to, as a collective, really stand our ground and challenge some of the top-down thinking, because that is not our future, and it's not how our people wish to live. COVID, to me, is a huge distraction, but it is created an opportunity to really do what we say we want to do. So you can easily put things on paper and you can submit them to whomever are on the, those in charge of authority, and particularly if there's pūtea related, but actually how do you do it together? So in our region, we've created our COVID response, much like our locality response, where we have iwi and our clinical community response standing together. And so we've created hubs across our whole Rohingya area where together we are the leaders. So in my area in the city, I'm partnered with our large iwi provider CE, and together we are responsible for the COVID response for not only Whanganui City, but the Awa and Ngararu. And so we're having really wonderful conversations with iwi now, saying, well, what do you want of us, and how do we have to respond differently? And I think that actually this journey is the silver lining, because it will create a different future, whether we're ready for COVID or not. We will be challenged by it for sure, but we are also relying on the trust and respect we have for each other, and that is what is the exciting aspect. Eradicating inequalities and unconscious bias. We talk about it, but we don't do anything about it, and we're all, I guess, exposed to environments where we see this acting out on an almost daily basis. So what are the spontaneous and natural behaviours we as leaders need to demonstrate, to show that we are authentic and respectful? And I think it is something that the system will not tolerate going forward. They will not tolerate the fakeness of our sincerity. We have to be authentic, and we have to do things that show that we are modelling behaviours that tell our people that we want something different. We need to lead with humility, and at times that does put us in a position where we have to stand up and say, no, we don't tolerate that at all, and you are a minority. But that's just what we have to do, and if as a collective we do it, then we will make enormous steps quickly. Modelling the values of kindness, integrity and passion, because if you really believe in those values, you won't do to other people, you will do the right thing. And I think we're going back to the basics here, being willing to show that courage and stand up for behaviour that isn't consistent with the partnership model. And as a DHB board member, and I've been on there for 9 years, I find that the most challenging playground for me, where I feel like it's a stuck record. And at the same time, I don't actually see that I make much progress, but on reflection, maybe we are. And if I didn't say it, actually, I would be allowing some unconscious bias statements or positions or investment or whatever to create a piece of policy that's not right. But the fact is, you don't always see the results immediately. You just have to go with your gut feeling. What can we do as practitioners? And I really loved how Andrew talked about that. It is about, as individuals, making change happen and modelling those changes. Don't underestimate the respect and esteem that iwi hold for practitioners that care about their people. And I've been in many forums where iwi leaders have reflected on a clinical consultational interface that made a difference for their whānau, and that was really, really important. And it is about one step at a time. And I think that as individuals, if you're modelling that trusting behaviour and you are the go-to person, then you need to trust your instincts and say, well, actually, if I can do it for this whānau, can I do it for my community? So there's going to be, if not all of us have experienced this whole storming and norming. I think someone talked about this morning that you've got to kind of pause and look back and say, who have I left behind? And that not to be affronted by some of the storming and norming behaviour, because it is about people wedded to their title, power, position, fear, and concern for their future, not necessarily for the future of the community that they're serving. And that's normal behaviour. You know, we all do it. Lean in and listen, and we don't need to know all the answers. People are not expecting us to have a set of answers to the change that we are all now part of. We are, in fact, better to actually sit down and create it together, weave it together, if you like. What I do ask you to do is examine your own personal beliefs and the aspirations that you have for your own family, because I think you'll find that they line up very nicely with the what Māori wish for their whānau, hapu and iwi. And so for many of us, we all have our own journeys that have shaped who we are, and we've all faced adversity where we've had to fight for particular family members or their health and well-being, or we've experienced clinical journeys that haven't been to our liking. And for those of us that are been around a while, we fight in our corner. That's all that iwi and Māori are asking for, that we fight in their corner, that we give them a different health system experience than they have had for the last 50 years. And I think Andrew talked about this is the best opportunity that we have. Let's not waste it. So I guess my last message is the using of the data and the stories to build the picture of what that possible future that will be very equitable will look like. And one of the things that I've learnt to do, which for those that know me know that I've got quite a big mouth, so it's really difficult, but it is about standing back and letting iwi lead and just trying to unpick what it is that's important to them, and then thinking, well, how can I influence that, or how can I shape that, or having some offline conversations saying, I heard what you said, I've been thinking about A, B, C or D, and often that is where the formation of something shared is created, not necessarily a beautiful paper coming out and then being expected in our way, our bureaucratic way of receiving feedback. Sometimes it is about one conversation at a time. As a Pākehā, get comfortable being uncomfortable. This world isn't about us saying as we are bringing in a Māori Health Authority who will have a distinct right from the Te Reti perspective, but also a right of legislation to be a partner with Health New Zealand. It will then, in my vision, weave down at every layer, and from that we will be enriched and supported to create something different. I think Andrew said something in his presentation about that, you know, that there's not enough people at the coalface anyway. So don't think that there isn't any place for you, and don't make your vulnerability be what other people see. If you're good at what you do, you will be at the table. People will invite you to be there, and you will be invited to participate in whatever that might look like. And the freedom I have being at this stage of my career and thinking, well, I might have 5 years or I might have, you know, less, don't know, is that I want to leave it a better place. And that's my message to you. So thanks for listening, and sorry about the slides being a bit old-fashioned, I noticed, but I'm so embroiled in the COVID journey, and even though we haven't had COVID arrive on our doorstep, it's been a busy time for us. So kōrero, thank you.
Kia ora, Jude, ngā mihi. That was, you know, just from some of the comments as well in the chat, just very uplifting, very honest, and as you say, it's more about how you made us all feel. And I think that is that whole inspiration and passion to go, actually, we can all do more. We can all reflect on ourselves, and yeah, no, that's awesome. Now, do we have questions for Jude? Do you want to stop sharing your screen, Jude? Is that okay?
Yes.
Any questions? No, we do need another sort of stand up and kind of like bit of movement before we move into our next speakers, which we want to stick to time, because they are literally, like many of you, coming in from a very busy day and also within general practice, and they'll have consultations after this. So Judy Blakey, you've got your hand up for a question.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I just thank you so much. That was great. Wonderful to discover your passion. And please don't ever apologize for making slides that reflect that passion, because I think that was fantastic. So thank you. I'm just going to raise something, because I'm an advocate for older people. And I think that one of the unconscious biases that exists in the health system that is not spoken about is ageism. And so I'm just going to raise that to say, please be aware of that as we move forward into this brave new world, because one of the biggest demographic shifts that's coming is the aging population.
Well, as I'm getting fairly acutely aware, I'm fairly close to that demographic. So, Judy, I hope that I will represent us well.
Well, it sounds as if you've certainly got the voice to do it. So well done.
All right. Any other questions? Again, you know, you can email through as you reflect on this, because I'm sitting here reflecting on our past speakers, and I'm thinking the richness of the mahi that's being done and being shared is sometimes it's not until later as well that you go, wow, you know, so many gold nuggets being shared. And we will do a little summary of the day just to capture that, you know, and just really, you know, yeah, keep on sharing. But what I'll do is, if we just take a minute again, because it is pretty fast paced, I'll just check if our other